If you're always the strong one in your maybe your family, your work, like the job that you're in, this conversation is for you. We're going to be talking about the strong Black woman role, how it is rooted in generational survival patterns, how to release it, unlearn it if you're looking to center yourself in your life, maybe for the very first time, and really build a life that addresses your needs. And yeah, so I'm so excited for this conversation. My name is Marissa Price. I'm the co founder of the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women. We are in our third year this year. It's coming up online May 1st through the 3rd. We have 28 incredible Black women speakers, thought leaders coming to share practical advice, strategy, guidance in one place, right? All online. So please register and get your ticket. I'm going to link that in the chat. It's also in the description section. But we have one of our incredible speakers, Dr. Cecily Moore, here today. I'm going to pass it over to her to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her work.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm Dr. Cecily Moore, physically located in Jackson, Tennessee. And I came to this work through my own lived experience, becoming a mom and having to negotiate what motherhood looked like for me, what had been demonstrated for me, but also where I was at presently in my life. I dealt with postpartum depression
Mhm.
and learning to be somebody's mom while also trying to figure out your own mental health and well-being, that is very challenging.
Mhm.
Interestingly enough, I had started my private practice working with perinatal mental health folks and saw this kind of phenomenon happening. Like, I
Mhm.
knew that Black women were suffering and that there was something around the word strong. It kept coming up over and over again as I was crying out for help. People kept telling me, "Oh, you're strong. You're a therapist.
Mm.
Therapize yourself." And I was like, "Y'all, that is not how this works."
Right.
And so interestingly enough, during that time, I was also in my PhD program and I was looking for counseling theories that centered Black women. And there really wasn't any that spoke to the lived experience that I was trying to address. And so that is
Mhm.
the topic of my dissertation, helping Black mothers unlearn the strong Black woman narrative.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I see a comment here, excited for this one. I'm so excited too. Um, yeah, can you share just a little bit? You don't have to go in detail, but just your dissertation, like that process, because it sounds like connected to your lived experience, right? And then doing the research for this dissertation, like what was that process like?
Yeah, for me, doing a research study, a dissertation was never about really being in academia. It was about finding other Black women who had a similar lived experience and could speak to their individual process around what it meant to unlearn the strong Black woman narrative. I wanted to center the voices of other Black women. And so I knew going into the dissertation process that my dissertation would be the framework or the clinical intervention that I used in my business to help other Black women unlearn this narrative. And so from that research study, and there were trials and tribulations. I think it took me a little over a year to complete the dissertation. And whenever I started the dissertation, they reworked how you picked your committee. So, like, I had in my mind the other Black women scholars who were going to support me, and that plan did not go as I had planned. I digress. Also, my husband and partner got deployed in the middle of that process. And so,
Wow.
me and
Mhm.
two small children moved across the country back home so that I could
Mhm.
have support. I took 6 months off to really focus on my well being because I had another little baby in
Mhm.
behind me. So, that process it was a labor of love, and people kept saying, like, "A done dissertation is the best dissertation," and I was like, "But if I take that mindset, we
Mhm.
will then again silence the voices of other Black women, and, like, that was a non-negotiable for me. Like, I wanted to highlight those voices, and I wanted those voices to be represented in research and in the academy, and there be a living document around, like, legacy and well-being for Black women.
So powerful. Thank you. And I see Candace Hunt. Hello, thank you for joining. Yes, Cecily is the voice on this topic and beyond. Yes, so honored. So honored. Yes. I do want to talk about your session at the summit, focused on unlearning the strong Black woman role, and reconnecting to your true identity, which we talked a little bit about, kind of like finding your identity outside of this role that has been placed on so many of us. I guess just what made this an important topic this year in particular, with we see like over 600,000 I've seen Black women being pushed out of the labor force, right? And all these different demands that we have on us that are just overlapping.
Yeah.
Yeah, bringing this conversation now, like what was the importance of that?
I feel like it's extremely important, and I think it's interesting seeing this happen on a larger scale because my work has been siloed in my little small private practice for so long, and, like, knowing that there was a bigger issue, there was a global issue. I personally think Black women have always been the blueprint,
Mhm.
and so I think the relevance and the importance is that we are collectively unlearning outdated beliefs, outdated identities. We're walking off of jobs that exploit our humanity and
Mm.
do not create space for our wellness and well-being and for the full expression of our humanity. And so I think what I am seeing, it is the collective understanding that the time is now and that it is necessary.
Mhm. Ooh, so many gems, so many gems. Yes, because a lot of what we experience in these jobs, right, having worked with Black women in toxic jobs in various capacities over the past 3 years, what you said, like exploiting our
Mhm.
humanity, right? A lot of these experiences are dehumanizing,
Yes.
right? They cut to the core of like who we are.
Mhm.
And so I've been doing like a few videos on this, like having feedback, like it's not that important, it's just a job. Like, no, this cuts to the core of who we are,
Yes.
and it's that important, right? And so to be able to like to connect it to historically how
Yes.
our labor has been devalued, I think is so very important during
Yeah.
these times. Hmm.
Hugely important.
Hmm.
And I feel like it's not just important from, like, a research scholarly perspective, but from the human perspective. I sit across from Black women every day and hear the same iteration of this story, just in a different font, right?
Hmm.
And what I continue to find in that exploitation, in that dehumanization, that help seeking is hard for us. There's a level of vulnerability in that. And so when people come to me, they're not saying, "Hey, Cecily, I'm coming to you because I want to leave my job or I want to leave, a toxic relationship." They're coming to me saying, "My health is in jeopardy. I had a health scare and it scared me. And so now I'm having to renegotiate my values, how I show up in
Hmm.
the world." And something else that I'm hearing very loudly and clearly is this notion of, I've been the giver, I've been the strong one, I've been the capable one, I've been the dependable one. And when I was at my lowest, when I was on my sick bed, no one showed up. It was cricket.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
when you have experiences like that, you start to think about your values, you start to think about meaning making, you start to think about what you've done up until this point in terms of your existence in the world, whether it's job related, family related, or whatever have you. And so those are the conversations that I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you for that. Um, Ooh, and so many things are coming up, right? I think it's so important to view this as like a human rights issue. Like that's just like coming up for me.
Mhm.
because we enter into these roles, right? They
Mhm.
challenge our humanity. They place sometimes like multiple roles on
Yes.
us, to the point where our bodies are breaking down physically, like we're literally losing our lives,
Mhm.
in the work, like due to toxic jobs, due to toxic relationships, right?
Yeah,
Like these things are really deep. Um, and so I think it's just so important, like your work. So thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
And I see a comment here saying I'm in the same boat.
Mm,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yep. I want to ask how you define the strong Black woman identity, and why it has been, I guess, through history, as we just touched on, a necessary survival strategy for a lot of Black women.
Yeah, I feel like the definition is nuanced and layered. I feel like it was definitely not developed with our humanity and our well-being in mind. The strong Black woman narrative identity was created out of slavery, as a characteristic that defined Black women as strong to like reinforce this ideology around labor. Right. And so
Mhm.
this identity has always been connected to labor, and we can't divorce that.
Mhm.
And so as you look down through history and you see the different types of stereotypes, all of them are centered around like our labor, whether it's emotional or physical labor. And so when I think about the strong Black woman identity, it was developed from a place to name the mistreatment that Black women were experiencing.
Mhm.
It was given to us to reinforce that we are the backbone, right? That we are strong, and that what we experienced in slavery wasn't that bad. Like you can handle it because you're strong,
Yes.
right? Um, and it has taken on many different characteristics as we look throughout different eras of time. I had a client look at a visual that I created that said, I've been each and every one of these stereotypes depending on the job that I had. So the mammy, right? The
Mhm.
Jezebel, the strong
Yeah.
Black woman, the angry Black woman. And so that identity of the strong Black woman is where it all started. It's our slavery origin story, but
Mhm.
it's an identity that was imposed on us and given to us. And don't get me wrong, some of our ancestors needed that strength, right, to survive slavery. I can't imagine what that was like. But as we evolve, as we gain more knowledge, we can't help but understand that this wasn't an identity, this wasn't a label that was given to us out of care and understanding. It
Yes.
was to ease the burden of the mistreatment that we were experiencing during slavery, and it was to keep us in the role of laborer and worker.
Wow. Wow. Yes. Hmm. Hmm. Thank you. I see Candace says, yes, great point. This is definitely a Black women's health issue and a matter of life and death. Hashtag liberation. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It
Yeah.
really is. And I want to talk about something like intersectionality, right? Coined by Kimberly Crenshaw is coming up.
Mhm.
How you see this, I guess, at the different intersections of our identities, because sexism is coming up too, as
Yeah.
we're talking through this. How do you see those intersecting identities impact the Black women who you work with, I guess, who you're in community with?
Yeah, and I think that's what I mean whenever I say it's nuanced and it's multifaceted, right? Like I work with Black women at different socioeconomic statuses,
Hmm.
who have different race and gender identities. So whether that be biracial or folks from African Caribbean culture, and the way that the strong Black woman narrative uniquely shows up as it relates to their culture, but also class. And this is something that I see, especially like being in academia. The strong Black woman identity, that label doesn't resonate with people, but the symptomology is the same. And so it's
Mm.
almost like I'm too educated to identify with the struggle,
Mhm.
but the behaviors and the symptomology look exactly alike. So it's same symptomology, different font, and depending on your race, class, gender, identity, social economic status, it impacts it in very different and nuanced ways, and it impacts your proximity to understanding how close or far you are away from the specific symptomology related to what it means to be a strong Black woman, um, in its, um, in its worst form.
Mm. Mhm. Thank you. I see a comment here that I want to get to, so thank you. I wish this was talked about more, especially for people coming out of college. I was so not prepared for being a Black woman and working. Now I'm 28 and burnt out. Yes,
Yeah,
I
absolutely,
agree. I
absolutely.
agree. Yeah. So many areas I was not prepared for, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, the person who you work with, like naming the different identities that have shown up in
Mhm.
the different jobs that she's been in. This is like, I need to sit and journal about this because this is so deep,
Yeah,
right?
it's deeply ingrained because, one, we were conditioned from birth to, like, hold this identity. We've watched our grandmothers do it, we've watched our mothers do it, we've watched caretakers do it, we've watched the little old ladies in the church do it. Like, we've watched women suffer in silence for centuries, right? And
Mhm.
so when you think about how has this identity played out, like whether somebody explicitly said it or had the language, it has been demonstrated for you in very nuanced ways. And to that comment around like being 28 and burned out, another thing that I continue to see is that Black women specifically are socialized to work in helping professions, which
Mhm.
goes back to domestic labor and slavery, like being in
Yes.
service to someone else. And so
Mhm.
when we think about like our work and the work that we want to do, I hear stories on a daily basis like I got in this field to help people or to give back to my community. And those are great and noble things, and we are doing it at the cost of our mental health, well-being, and identity. Like we're doing it to a fault because we have been conditioned to self-sacrifice and never question and prioritize our own well-being.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you mentioned earlier about the help seeking, like not wanting to ask for help,
Mhm.
kind of just pushing through. I did a video on my channel about Black girl depression, right, and how symptoms may show up differently
Mm,
for Black girls and Black women. Right, a lot of us are socialized to push through to take on more work,
yes.
right, when we're feeling those initial symptoms that come up,
Mhm.
when we're in toxic environments,
Yeah.
right? And the solution that we've been told is to take on more projects, to show people, to prove our worth
To prove
to
our worth.
people, right? And it continues to break our bodies down, because that's dehumanizing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the exploitive nature of this narrative, this persona, this stereotype that we have been told, like push through, do more. That's how you prove yourself. A lot of times when I work with clients, like we have to have the conversation around learning to go from doing to being. Funny thing, like in my counseling practice, I don't allow clients to see me on a weekly basis. And the rationale behind that is because what I have learned is, especially dealing with this nuanced identity, is that folks feel like the work is in like the to-do list, in the showing up every day. And I'm like, no, 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 boo boo.
Mhm.
We're trying to build distress tolerance. Like we're trying to help you fully process the emotion, and we're trying to create space for you to have a truth telling conversation with yourself around
Mhm.
what's actually happening and what's at stake. What has this identity cost you? And the hardest thing for for my clients, or what I'm seeing with my clients, is sitting with themselves and talking about what this identity has really cost them.
Mm. Mhm. Ooh, and what's coming up is, like, grief, right?
Yes.
Sometimes grief can come up around that. I know for me, like, having to process, like, how much I gave to this particular
Mhm,
role, for it not to be reciprocated and then kind of to be, like, what it felt like kinda pushed out,
mhm.
right? When we're told, like, "Give more of your labor." That's the answer, like,
That's
more of
it.
yourself to the point where you don't have anything left for yourself.
Yeah.
And coming to that realization, like, they still don't value you, right? Is a hard That's a really hard pill to swallow.
A
And it
hard
grief and disillusionment. Mhm.
Yeah, I joke with people a lot and tell them, "I am a career counselor by trade, but I am not interested in helping Black women get jobs. My
Mm.
work is the exit planning piece and the mindset shift that it takes to be able to bet on yourself, because time after time after time, I've sat across from Black women that say, "Oh my gosh, I've given 22 years to this place, and
Yeah.
they dropped me like a bad habit."
Yeah.
I trained the person that took my role.
Ooh. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so coming to the realization that you're disposable is heart-wrenching.
Mhm.
But if we're honest about it, like, that has been the narrative down through time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, we have been used and exploited for our labor, both emotional and physical.
Yeah.
And the longer we continue to perpetuate this narrative, the longer we're gonna continue to uphold this identity in its most harmful form.
Ooh. Yeah. Ooh, thank you. Thank you. Crystal says, "Hello, thank you for joining." Crystal Bradley, "I had to correct a brother who called me a strong Black woman. I'm a woman. I'm allowed to be vulnerable, down, upset, or whatever without masking for others." Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, the full spectrum of emotions, right, that we have as human beings.
Yes.
And society likes to try to limit us,
Mhm.
right? It's like,
Mhm.
whoo.
Yeah, yeah. And
It's
other people call us strong as if it's a compliment without
Mhm.
acknowledging the weight that that carries, and, like, what the expectation is when you say, "Oh, you're strong." It's usually in regards to a negative connotation, to something happening that was unfavorable. And so, at what point do we get the luxury to say, "Actually, like, no, I don't wanna do it. I'm not strong in this moment. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be cared for and considered." And I feel like those 2 words specifically come up in my work so much, is this idea of belonging and being cared for and considered.
Mm. Mhm. Ooh, and to your point that the label strong, right? Some people may a twisted compliment,
Mhm.
right? But you said it like it's often with an unfavorable, like something negative happened to you that was very harmful,
Yes. Yes.
right?
More times than not.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Let me get to these comments. Thank y'all so much. Yes, I feel like it's so ingrained in us that it really creeps up on you. I didn't even notice that I was being a mammy until I started having chest tightness. It started for me as surrounding myself with really chaotic people who couldn't solve their own problems and overextending myself to help them.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the
Anything you,
vulnerability
yeah,
in that share.
anything that you want to say around that, like the physical symptoms, and then also being in relationships where you're expected to give right endlessly and it's not being reciprocated on the other side.
Yeah. Specifically to my dissertation research, the 2 places that unlearning the narrative showed up the most, or the hardest places to unlearn, was in, romantic relationships and in work
Mm,
relationships. And so there's a whole lot that could be said there. But to that comment specifically around, like, how do you know? Like, it just kinda creeps up on you. That's by design. We have been
Mhm.
conditioned to be strong Black women, to endure, to take on, hardships, right? There was a meme going around a while back, that said, like, "I never saw a well-rested woman," and so there hasn't been a demonstration for a lot of us around what this actually looks like and how to practice it. And so a lot of us are trailblazers. We're building the
Yeah.
plane midair. And that in itself can be overwhelming. It can be a feat. It can be daunting as you're navigating societal expectations, familial expectations, personal expectations, because internalized oppression is a real thing and it runs deep.
Yes.
Uh,
Mhm.
and that was one of the first few steps that came out of my research, is like being able to let go of the indoctrination, because you are hearing it, right?
Mhm.
At multiple levels. You're hearing it in your family system, you're hearing
Yeah.
it in society, like you're hearing it, it's being reinforced everywhere that you turn around. So, yes, it does creep up on you, but the process to unlearning is really a recovery process. And I liken it to recovery, just like when people suffer from addiction, like you're going to be triggered at some point and you're going to have to start this process over again, right? And
Mm.
practice
Mhm.
makes perfect, if you will. And so that's what I see with the unlearning process, because the world was not built and designed with our humanity and well-being. We are going to be triggered more often than not. And so this becomes a practice, right? It's a thing that you have to intentionally engage in trying to unlearn on a day-to-day basis.
Mhm. That's such an important point. It being a practice over time.
Yeah.
Um, and what you mentioned about us being trailblazers, right? Some of us are the first in our families
Yes.
in centuries to embark on this, right? To see
Yes.
ourselves as separate from our labor.
Mhm.
That's really a radical concept within this society. And I guess like if you are the first person, um, any way that you can find, like get connected with communities or support that you found to be able to not feel like it's just you
Mhm.
navigating, like you said, your family system, like societal messages, trying to get you back in place,
Absolutely.
and really like continue this journey of liberation for you and for future generations. Any ideas on support or community that you can recommend?
Yeah, the 2 most accessible ways that I feel like I've, like, helped folks unlearn this narrative is through, 1, reading.
Mm,
2 is truth-telling conversations with yourself, because oftentimes, you lie to yourself first, like, you're trying to convince yourself that it's not as bad as it is, but as you tell the story in community or with your therapist or whomever, like, we're clocking that something's off, but don't yet have language to name that. And so, what I saw in my research is that people, 1, began reading to, like, develop language to their experience, to what they were experiencing. Because oftentimes, we talk about the conditioning. Folks don't always have language. They're like, "This is how it's always been, so this is how it's gonna be," right?
mm, mhm.
But when you think about community, and I think about like womanist healing practices,
Yeah.
specifically in my counseling practice, where one, we talk about community. But I even think before you search out community, because there's so much work to do around vulnerability, around being able to ask for help, specifically in Black culture, is what happens at the house stays at the house. So don't be telling nobody your business. There are so many hurdles to be able to get to the place of being able to receive and embrace and experience community. So community comes later, because there's so much like mindset work that needs
Mhm.
to happen first before you can even allow yourself to be in those spaces and be vulnerable.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Um, Get to a comment here. I vote hello, welcome again. I'm 72 and cannot tell you how many women I've known over the years who fit this pattern are no longer here
Yeah,
as a result of that pattern, right? So, as we
yeah,
talked about earlier, like this is truly life and death.
yes, most
Hmm.
definitely. And even just speaking to that, like, the work became serious for me w when I had my daughter. But and shout out to my mom because she's probably watching, but when I started looking at all the things that my mom had sacrificed in terms of, like, in the name of, like, a better life for us, but how it had manifested, and so recognizing that, yes, her intent was good, right? Like, I want y'all to have this great life, but, like, we hadn't seen her happy, like, we hadn't seen a relaxed version of her, and so especially in the beginning when I started talking about this, my motto has always been, and I don't know if I can say bad words on here, but has been
Yeah.
unlearn that shit.
Uh huh.
And it came out of the anger. It came out of like radicalizing and decolonizing my mindset. And I was like, this is a load of shit.
Uh huh.
And if we don't unlearn it, it is going to kill us. And so no longer being palatable and constantly like having these conversations in my family system where I was like, I ain't doing it. That's my
Hmm.
boundary. This is how I'm going to raise my daughter. And I firmly, firmly believe that you cannot drag people along for the change, right? Like you have to be the demonstration and hope that they come along for the ride. And so when I was able to release, like, I'm trying to drag you along, but then I became evidence of this work. Like that's what broke the pattern. And so seeing that you've been on this earth 72 years and you've seen this pattern play out, right? Um that's such a powerful statement. And I truly, truly believe that the best mental health advice intervention that's available to Black women is unlearning the strong Black woman narrative for this very reason.
Wow. Thank you so much. Um, Maylis, hello. Thank you for joining. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you for mentioning recovery. That's exactly how I view this practice.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing that you will fall back into a pattern that feels familiar, right?
Yes, yes.
That's part of it. That's
That's
part of the
part of
journey.
it. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
but we've never been given the grace, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
the self-compassion to fall back. We've always been told, "You gotta be twice as good, you gotta work twice as hard." And so even just those little comments, that's indoctrination there, right? That's conditioning there. That's priming your mindset. And so language is so important. The stories that we tell ourselves is so important. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's definitely a practice.
Yes. Yes. Crystal says, I feel so seen. Thank
Oh,
you.
yes. Yes.
Candace Hunt, the truth will set you free, the real truth. Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned that being like the second part after books, which is have been huge.
Yes.
As you said, to get the language for I know what I'm feeling, like I know this doesn't feel right.
Right.
But having the language, right, to like put the pieces together.
Mhm.
That's like what From Pet to Threat, coined by Dr. Keisha Thomas, Dr. Rosemary Phelps, Dr. Juanita Johnson Bailey. That's what that term did for me because I was able to see and externalize the harm that I was experiencing.
Yes.
Um, and so, yes, the books, right, as your first recommendation. The second part, so powerful, having truth telling conversations with yourself.
Mhm.
If someone might be new to that, because we do have to lie to ourselves so often to get through
Get
a
through.
lot of these things and environments, conditions that we're in. How can someone start that if you have any like beginner
Yeah.
steps?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's grounding it in reality. So, what is hurting? What feels off? Right. And I think in order to develop that language, like one, it comes with time, awareness, and exposure. And those things don't always happen quickly and it doesn't always happen simultaneously. But rarely do I ever meet people who, um, can't articulate that something's off. For instance,
Mhm.
being a clinician, people will come to me and they'll tell me their presenting problem, why they're in therapy, right? And
Mhm.
my immediate thought was, if things are so good, why are you here?
Mhm.
And so that truth telling conversation piece is around stop performing. And when you're able to stop performing and say, I don't like when you do XYZ to me, or I don't like how this feels. And I'm not really for sure why I don't know, why I don't
Mhm.
like how it feels. More often than not, it's the nervous system trying to communicate to you,
Ooh.
right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yep.
Um, but what keeps us in the inability to have a truth telling conversation with ourselves, I firmly believe, is our inability to slow down. And so until you can slow down and really address this idea of going from doing to being, it's hard to hear those internal messages. Like the body knows, it's super intelligent, and it's been telling you and calling to you all along. I can't tell you how many people, like, once they get on the other side, they're like, oh, that was a red flag the whole time. I was just ignoring it. So it's not that the felt sense of what needs to be voiced isn't there. It's, can I slow down enough and be with myself to create that space for the truth to come forward?
That is so powerful. Um, yeah. It's something that just came up, right? Where if we're taught to push through,
Mhm.
right, even giving ourselves time to rest and slow down, right? And we think that's not for us, right? To the point where that's actually the space that you need to make the change.
Yes.
And it
Yeah,
becomes like a vicious cycle,
absolutely.
right?
It's by design. It's
Uh-huh.
oppression is
Yeah.
sneaky. Yes, I do a talk called Rest is the Clinical Intervention, because what I hear from my clients is, oh, I just need a 3-day vacation. I want to go to the beach and sit by the beach for 3 days. And I'm like, but you got to come back to this raggedy environment. So
Mm.
that's a band aid.
Mhm.
Right? And in say, even in just that, when they're saying like, "I wanna go to the beach," they're asking to slow down. They're asking for stillness. They're asking to connect back to their knowing. They're saying, "I just wanna hear the waves and the water. I wanna feel the sand in my toe." Like, you're asking for the things that you need, but because rest has been exploited and co-opted for us, like, we can't even recognize those opportunities and indulge in the spaces that have been created for us. um More often than not, like, I do FMLA paperwork for folks, and
Mhm.
when I mention it, it usually takes a year or so for
Interesting.
them to be like, "Oh, that actually makes sense." But by that time, health is depleted, like,
Ooh.
things have shown up, so, like, me just introducing the idea that, like, you need to slow down and create some space for yourself, I get a ton of people who's like, "I don't think I'm there yet," and I understand that, and I have grace for that, because some of that is, well, what does this mean for me financially, right? Like, what are the consequences of slowing down? And so I think
Mhm.
that is a very real and practical conversation that people need to have. Like, why can't we slow down? Because the reason that we can't slow down, again, is by
Uh-huh.
design. How many of
Absolutely.
us are breadwinners in our house? Like, how many of us are the
Mhm.
caregivers and taking care of other family members? So the system is designed so that we don't slow down and we continue on this trajectory that we're on.
Yes. Yes. Ooh. I wanted to ask you about the praise, right, that we may receive for leaning even deeper into this identity. The rewards, the accolades, right, the pats on the back.
Yeah.
And how to begin, I guess, to detach yourself from that, because there are very real things that we get, especially in the workplace, from
Yeah.
pushing ourselves past the point of exhaustion.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I guess that's just my question. Like to begin to, what's in my mind is like substitute some
Yeah.
of that validation that we're receiving externally for pushing ourselves to something that actually like pours into us and
Yeah.
makes us well.
Yeah, I think that's where self-discovery and self-exploration comes in, like, you
Mm.
have the space to do those things, because more often than not, um, when clients come to me, they're excelling in the role of employee, like, they're a damn good employee, and so taking that from them or questioning that role feels unfair because that's where they get their validation and that's where they get their sense of belonging. And so
Mhm.
when you think about like sense of belonging, when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when you think about self-esteem, when you think about like things that people need to feel self-actualized, belonging is right there. And so now I'm questioning the place that you felt some semblance of belonging and some semblance of safety, right? And so this is why I say that this work is slow work, because when you start to question the thing, you're uprooting safety net. You're uprooting very real, tangible like things. You're uprooting quality of life. You're asking somebody to, deprioritize whatever their quality of life has been. And a lot of times you're asking people to start over. And so, um, I think it goes back to that truth telling conversation with yourself. And I think it goes back to values work. Like, is my value rooted in what I can achieve? And if I'm honest with myself, um, does this belonging feel right and aligned? Because most 99% of my clients say, like, I am only as good as how useful I am to somebody. So, yes, I am a leader in this corporation, but people only reach out when they want a job or when they want some type of advice or like they want their own come up. And so even like evaluating what that sense of belonging
Mhm.
represents and how it's attached to the achievements. And for most folks, they can verbalize it like, oh, I feel like I'm being used, and people only want to connect with me when it's tied to some type of personal gain.
Mm. Mhm. That's very deep. That's very deep. Thank you. And I see a question from Crystal Bradley. Do you think the term black girl magic feeds into the strong black woman stereotype? To say we're magical is to say we're something other than human. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I do have a question on this too.
Yeah.
Some of the earliest ways this identity begins to form in girlhood and kind of transitions to womanhood. Anything that you want to share around that?
Yes and no on
Mm.
this specific question. And the reason why
Mhm.
I say yes is because if somebody already has core wounds around their identity and belonging and development, any term or label that you give them is probably going to result in some type of negative impact, right, to their identity development and lived experience. The reason why I won't take or refuse to take strong Black woman out of my work is because it was a survival strategy for my ancestors. My work is to reappropriate what strength means. I still need strength, but I need it in a healthier form. And so if I
Mm.
wanna be magical, if I wanna be whimsical, if I wanna live the soft life, like, I'm asking people to engage in a redefinition process that centers their values, their humanity, and their well-being. And until you can engage in self-definition in a way that centers those things for you, it don't matter what I call you.
Mhm. Mhm. So powerful. I'm gonna have to go back and watch this interview. Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome. I can talk about this all day. Like, I feel like this has been my life and my world for the past, I don't know, 5 to 7 years. And so when people are like, you talk about the strong black woman narrative, I'm like, let's go. I got a lot of thoughts.
Mhm. Yes. Um, to your quote, I still need strength, but I need it in a healthier form.
Yeah.
Because I have seen some resistance, right? When you push back on how it is killing us, right? How it
Yeah.
is like shortening our life expectancy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That people will try to hold on to it. And what you're saying is to redefine what
Yes.
this means, right? To understand the origins of this particular identity and
Yes.
then to transform it, right, into something that actually like values our humanity.
Yes, we need strength from a practical level. We need to be healthy. We need strong muscles so that we don't develop osteoporosis. Like, we need strength, but we need it in a healthier form. We don't need it from the perspective of my mindset and my health is deteriorating. And so, really, one, understanding the origin, yes, is important, but like any term, we need magic, we need dreams, we need whimsy. Like, we need these things. They're a part of our creative center. But
Mhm.
understanding how these terms and these ideologies have been weaponized against us, that's the key. And strength has been weaponized
Mhm.
against black women. And so you can't take a thing that I need practically for my survival and tell me that I can't access it, right? Like that,
Mhm.
who are you to tell me that? Like, I practically need strength, but I don't need it in the way that it's been given to me and imposed upon me.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. It's to see the roots run so deep,
Yeah.
right? Which is why I'm so thankful
Yeah.
for your work, right?
Yeah. The
Um,
roots are really deep, really, really deep.
so deep, so deep. Um, and it has been just over the past 3 years of working on the summit, this being our third summit,
Mhm.
coaching Black women who have been in toxic work environments, really being able to see how deep this goes and how like widespread it is. Like this is a global issue of the
Yeah.
ways in which like Black women's labor is devalued, right? Again, from girlhood, like the seeds are planted,
The seeds are planted. The
right? And then
seeds
we
are
get
planted.
into these, yeah, these toxic workplaces, toxic relationships that just drain us, drain our life force energy.
Yeah.
Um, and we're having to kind of understand like what is happening because this has been the thing that has been for generations.
It's been
And so,
perfect.
like you said, being trailblazers, it can feel like
Yeah.
doing something new is impossible when it's been that deeply ingrained for centuries.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I get a lot of people that will come to me and they're like, "Oh, like, I wanna get a new job. Like, this job is toxic. I can identify that. I want to get a new job." And I have to ask questions around, "Well, have you created space to heal?" Um, because if not, we're just gonna replicate that cycle and that harm in a new space, right? And so even when folks come to me and they're like, "I wanna open up a private practice." I'm a therapist. So, "I wanna, like, start a business." And I'm like, "Okay, but what you're describing right now is you're just gonna go create another job for yourself." So the thing that you're telling me you want and you desire, which is this independence and this space to experience your full humanity, like, you've gotta heal from the residue that being in that environment has left with you. We don't always have the luxury and the space to do that and to engage in this process in a slow, simple, and soft way. Like, a lot of times the strategy around figuring that piece out is missing, and so we bounce from one thing to another, not healing our burnout, not healing the residue from the environment, not addressing the things that are operating outside of the workplace in our family system that's
Mhm.
contributing to our burnout? And so that's a question that I feel like I always have to ask, like, has there been any space created for your healing? And if so, what does that look like, or what is the obstacle preventing that?
That's so very important. Yeah. In residue, right? That term is just bringing up so many ideas. Yeah, because we carry it with us,
Yes.
right? To different situations if we haven't had that time and being within this system of racial capitalism, right? That doesn't provide us with
Yes.
space to be able to heal so often,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
it's just impossible conditions that we're trying to survive, find space and time to heal, to know our true identities
Yes.
within like intertangled systems of oppression.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, as you mentioned, self compassion is just, it's in order,
Yes.
right? And knowing that there is going to be a time where you fall back into the pattern,
Mhm.
if that is the only thing that you've seen,
Yes.
right? And you're new to this. So giving yourself grace, and
Yes.
viewing it as a practice, as
Yes.
you
Yes.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Giving yourself grace and having that knowing allows you to develop self-trust and the skill of self-advocacy. Because I see so many folks that struggle to ask for help. When I first started doing counseling, one of the things that I would ask all clients is like, what are your wants, needs, and desires? And on average, it would take clients 2 or 3 months to circle back to that question. And so developing that practice of asking yourself, who am I? Who am I evolving into? What are my wants, needs, and desires in this season? Like, even something as simple as that is a primer for having that truth telling conversation with yourself. Because oftentimes, when you're able to tap in, what is the thing that I want, need, and desire, you also are faced with what are the obstacles to reaching that thing. And oftentimes, those obstacles are where the tension lies.
Mm-hmm. That's such an important point. Thank you. Already comment from Candace Hunt. I've already shared this with 3 friends. Thank you so much because it deserves to reach far beyond my circle. As someone who has been working on this for a few years, today's live felt like both a powerful reality check and a meaningful mirror. Thank you so much for sharing this. Such a strong reminder that growth isn't a quick fix, it's lifelong work. Marissa, you were right. And Dr. Moore, to your point about this being slow work,
Yeah.
I think that's so crucial, right? Please don't like rush into any of this, like having this understanding, right? It's literally generational
Yes.
healing, right?
Yes.
Ancestral healing.
Mhm.
It is slow work, it is deep
Mhm.
rooted. Anything that you want to say around that?
Yeah, I think just the word within itself, like, we have been indoctrinated into hustle culture, do, 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 push through, and so when I talk to people about this work and I mention that it is slow work, um, so many of us are conditioned to, like, I'm on my healing journey. Like, I want to get to my healing journey. And then I'm like, sis, that is not a destination, it's a practice. Right? And so when I'm talking about slow work, anytime you solve a problem, it creates a new one. Like, there's a new level of awareness unlocked, but you've got to deal with what you got and what you have language for and what feels accessible right then. And so even just in counseling work and healing work, I tell people, like, you're going to be doing your own internal work, but it is going to highlight the unhealed parts of everybody around you.
Whew.
Right. And so
Yes.
even just sitting with that, the slowness is the awareness building piece, and how you have to negotiate with yourself around how my identity is transforming, how my identity is evolving, and like, what are the places and spaces and people that I'm like choosing to engage with and share my time. And so, yes, slow means slow, but it's also very nuanced and intentional and delicate work. And we have not always been afforded the opportunity to experience the delicacy of identity
Mm.
work and grief work, right? Like,
Wow.
people come to me
Uh-huh.
all the time, such and such just died. I've got to get over them so I can go back to work.
Oh,
And I'm like,
wow.
that ain't how
Yes.
grief works.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yes, it is a delicate process.
We haven't been afforded that. Wow, that just hit me. Yeah,
Yeah.
right? Because looking at, I did a video on this, your grief is not an inconvenience, right? Because we're given like maybe 1 to 2 business days, right? To grieve this person and then get back to how
Get
things were.
back
It's
to
like
it.
that's not human, right? That's
Yeah.
not the
Yeah,
human grieving process.
it's not
Um,
sustainable.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not. I do want to ask, Dr. Moore is one of our fantastic, incredible speakers at the upcoming 2026 Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women, coming up May 1st through the 3rd. What people can expect to walk away from your session at the summit? Anything, any teasers that you want to share with
Yeah.
us?
Yeah. Black women's identity development and that work is my jam. So there will be a little like sharing of my personal story, but what does unlearning this identity look like practically? Um, I'm an educator, I'm a practitioner, and so we're going to walk away with a roadmap and a checklist so that even if therapy or coaching or whatever doesn't feel accessible right now, like you have something that you can start to do in your own time. I talk about, how reading is accessible. I've got a list of books that I recommend to my
Ooh,
folks, whether
I'm
that's,
excited.
yeah, you read it or audible books, but it's starting that process around like finding language for yourself, and as you grow in your awareness and your knowledge, like naturally you're going to crave more. Like you start to um be too big for the space. You recognize you no longer fit in spaces that you've previously been in. And so you then go seeking more information to engage in this process. So I'm going to give folks a roadmap to engage in the process. And I'm going to give folks a checklist to determine if they have a bullshit job. And most
Ooh. I'm so excited. I am so excited. Thank you for sharing that. Just read a few of these last comments here as we're winding down. Hustle is not a destination. It's a practice, right, to unlearn some of
Mhm.
these things that have
Yeah,
been so deeply ingrained.
yeah,
Into to like you said, like healing is not a destination. It's a practice. It's a slow thing over time.
yes.
You said as you solve one problem, another one's gonna pop up, right?
Mhm.
Because you're going deeper into
Every time.
the issues that you're experiencing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every time.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oof. And to know that you're not doing it wrong, right, when that happens, because I know that can throw some people off, like, "This is
Yes.
coming back up," or like, "I'm right back
Yeah.
where I started." That's part of it.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So many
Mhm.
times my clients, the type A girlies, they're like, "Just give me a checklist. If you give me a checklist, I got it." And I'm like, "That ain't the way that this works." But
Yeah.
oftentimes when they get to that point of tension and frustration, I'm like, "Here are the ways in which you've already been doing the work. So let's slow down and acknowledge how far you've come." And even something as simple as that, like we haven't been afforded the space to be celebrated because
Mm.
we've been in the push, 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 go, 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 do, 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 right? And so just slowing down and creating a safe container where folks can be cared for and considered, and the acknowledgement around like you have made progress and this is the ways in which that has shown up can be huge for people.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you so much. And Candace says, "I've already shared this live." Oh, okay, a real live therapy session for Black women. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. That means a lot. As we are
Yes.
winding down, if people feel connected to you and resonate with your work, how can they work with you? If you do have anything that you want to share, and how can they follow you on social
Yes,
media?
most definitely. The kind of home place, if you will, for my work is my website, drcecilymoore.com. I will also give you a link to my newsletter, the Strong Black Woman Recovery Project. I am on all the socials, Threads, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook under Dr. Cecily Moore. And there's a mixture. You're going to see my kids, you're going to see my daughter, you're going to see, me yapping and popping my stuff. And it's just a look into my life and my humanity. But for the work of unlearning, that's going to be placed on my website through my blogs, in those type spaces in my newsletter.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for all the knowledge that you just dropped on us in this live. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. Yeah, any last words if someone is still struggling to see, I guess, their identity outside of the strong Black woman role, right? That has been imposed on us, that word that you used is just sitting with me. Any like maybe a first step that
Yeah.
you could recommend as we wind down?
The first step is giving yourself grace and compassion. Like the fact that you're here says a lot and speaks volume. A coach that I worked with years ago, Stacey Jordan Shelton, she said alignment collapses time. And I wholeheartedly believe and agree with that because I do think that there is something divine about this work that when you set the intention that I want to start unlearning the obstacles and the opportunities will be placed before you to do that work. And so,
Ooh, thank you. Um, yes, I want to thank y'all so much for being here in the chat. Dr. Moore, thank you again for joining me. I'm so looking forward to your talk.
yeah,
At the summit coming up all online May 1st to the 3rd, we have 28 incredible Black women thought leaders coming to share practical strategy, advice, healing, which I think is so important. So yeah, you can get your ticket. It's in the description section if you'd like to join us. And yeah, with that, thank y'all so much for joining. If you're watching the replay, thank you.
yes,
And yeah, until next time, y'all. Appreciate
yes.
you. Bye.
Bye.